the biggest takeaway of what I'm trying to say here is if you understand the framework of how an HTML page in a website should be structured, then you're already ahead of the game, because the whole purpose of that is to make sure that your website is structured properly so that the Google bots can crawl it and index it. If your page is not indexed, your page is not being served on Google. You're listening to the Web Presence Rockstars podcast with me, Misty Smith of Powered by Rio. If you're an entrepreneur on a small budget and are looking to build and increase your online presence, then you're in the right place. I'm a full-stack website developer, digital marketing strategist, an SEO professional, and I share tips and how-tos on topics on the latest trends such as websites, social media, analytics, marketing, everything you need to know to grow your business online and to become a rock star. Thanks for listening.
Get out of the way, get out of the way. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. I'm gonna be the biggest rock star that you probably never heard of. I'm gonna be the biggest rock star.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Web Presence Rockstars podcast. I'm your host, Misty Smith of Powered by Rio, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the knowledge and tools that you need in addition to the Google Search Console in order to properly optimize your website with SEO best practices. So I know I talk a whole lot about the Search Console, and I will continue to talk a whole lot about the Search Console because, hey, that's who I am and I love it and it's awesome and great and all that. But there's some other tools that you should understand, and when you understand these certain things, then it will help you to optimize your site a whole lot better. So it's a lot more than just doing your keywords. And you guys know, if you've heard any of my past episodes, that, keywords and key words, one word versus two words, just drive me crazy. There's a huge difference, and you can fall into a trap of keyword stuffing. And now with all of this artificial intelligence, I just really think it's going to get a whole lot worse. And I think people are going to continue to take shortcuts in order to get their rankings on their website up. And, there's a lot of things that go into search engine optimization. There's a lot of factors that are involved. So like, if you're not putting a lot of content on your website, then that's one issue that you have. If you just have the minimal content on your website and you don't update it, you don't refresh it, or you don't add more pages or whatever, your website's just gonna flatline, I guess, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's gonna be there, and based upon the content that you have, if people are going to your site, if you have the traffic, that's one thing. If you don't have the traffic and you're not doing anything to update or refresh your website, then you're not going to get any additional traffic. And that's just factual. So some of you guys out there who just want the website for the presence of the website, just so that, the legitimacy, if someone says, oh, what is this business, and you have a website, okay, that's fine, and you're going to get the minimal amount of traffic, and that's cool. If that's what you want and that's what you need, there are people out there and there are clients out there who have that. Now, sometimes people have websites and their businesses provide for tons of traffic just based on who they are. Like, for example, golf courses. And I know this to be true because I do websites for golf courses. And one in particular, it's a very popular public golf course. And we post things on there, like their memberships for pools. And they have like a player's card where you can get discounts playing golf and stuff. And they also have a pretty large email list. So I can provide documentation firsthand on how a large email list actually helps with traffic to your website, and what you post on your website actually helps with your traffic and with your business. So I've seen it happen. I've seen it firsthand. And I guess that's one of the advantages of me being in my position where I spend more time with other people's websites than I do my own. And I admit my website has fallen short here. It looks cool. And if you go to the Search Console, I don't have any errors on it. Everything is crawled. Everything is indexed. Everything is like green check marks all the way down. I got my site map. I got everything going for me. It's just I've not really added a lot of content on there in order for Google to serve it up in a search other than for the name of my company. And that's my fault. I mean, I did that to myself because there's times when I have so many things going on that I don't focus on my own website. I don't focus on my own marketing. I get paid to do it for other people. And that's a drawback that I'm trying to fix. And I'm so hard trying to fix that. But, but the flip side of all this is that I get to see other people's websites, and I get to see other people's traffic, and I get to see their marketing attempts and their email marketing campaigns, and I get to see the traffic and how many people hit their websites and when they exit and all that. So I do have a ton of knowledge based on that. So you could have the best website in the world, and if you're not updating it, and if you're not providing original content and, keeping it up to date, and it doesn't really have to be once a week. It doesn't even have to be, once a day or once a month. As long as you are providing original content, every once in a while, Google's still going to crawl. And we're going to get into that here later about how if you force yourself, well, let's just talk about it now, okay? Since we've already started. If you force yourself to post, and I'm talking, well, this could go for social media too, I think. But if you're forcing yourself on a posting schedule, like for a blog post, like if you want to do a blog post once a week, or if you want to post on social media once a day, and you're short on content, and you've reused your content that you've posted before, and you just don't know what to post, you could fall victim to just posting anything. And that's a slippery slope you need to be careful about, because maybe do it once or something and you should be fine. But the more content that you post that really isn't original or relevant or helpful to other people, Google could think that that's what your site's about. So that's why it's important to know these tools that I'm going to go over, because just think about it. I've been there too. It's like when I was doing all those podcasts every day for 6 weeks or whatever. Oh my gosh, I was like banging my head against the wall. And you can look back at how many people have listened to the podcast. Like the stuff that had valuable, helpful information has tons of listens, and some that, are just I don't want to say crap, because it's not crap. It was important to me, but it's not important to other people per se. They got less listens, right? Those I don't want to call it fluff, but it's filler content that is just to fill it, to meet a quota, to meet the self-imposed quota that you would put on yourself to, I've got to do this, my website has to be this, it has to be this, and it has to do this, and I have to use these keywords, and I have to do whatever. And especially with the increase of artificial intelligence, if you are using that in not a so productive way, that you're using it just for, post creation, content creation, and you're not really editing it out or whatever, it's gonna fall flat of being original and not for the people, and you're just doing it just to get rankings, which, as we know, if you're doing something just to get rankings, then it's going to fall short. You have to create your content for the people, for your customer avatar, for your target audience, for whoever you're creating the content for. So, a lot of these entrepreneurs out there who have podcasts and websites and courses and all that, they have lots of tools, or you can create your own. And I would say on any given day, if you're stuck about something, don't post it. If you're stuck, and if you think that what you're about to post is just generic or not helpful or just for the sake of posting, then don't do it. It's not going to hurt anything. I mean, I know you probably have followers who look forward to your content all the time, but if you don't have anything new or exciting or helpful or anything out like that to provide, like any type of value, then don't post it. And I think your audience will probably appreciate you for that, instead of just like regurgitating something that you said 2 weeks ago, or talking about something that has nothing to do with what you think that, well, not what you think, but what your business is about. And I know there's a fine line between that, but I think you can be the best judge of that. So just keep that in mind. Everyone's like consistency, but nowadays it's not so much, at least on the internet, it's not so much about being consistent. It's about providing valuable, original information for people who are actually looking for that type of information, instead of what you think people are looking for. So it's a lot more transparent. It's a lot more real, I guess, instead of like, just saying things for the sake of saying things. So, and maybe that's why I go so long between podcast episodes, because I don't want to just say something for the sake of saying something, because I kind of did that for 6 weeks and I got burnt out on that. And I want to be able to provide some good, valuable information to whoever needs to hear it or wants to hear it or can utilize it. So anyway, just keep that in mind, but also keep in mind, it's not all about keywords. What you're basically doing is you have a dartboard up on the wall and you're throwing a dart at something that you think maybe people want to hear about, and you're using all the keywords in every which way format. And that, I mean, yeah, is it helpful? Sure. Is it more helpful to be yourself and to use your own words? Yeah, that's what I think. That's my impression. That's my opinion, which is why I never really do a whole lot of keyword research anyway. I mean, back in the day when you put keywords in the meta tags and Google kind of kept track of all the keywords and stuff on your website, I mean, yeah, I did a little bit of research, but I mean, come on, y'all, let's be original. I mean, people are going to follow you for you and your knowledge and what you have to offer, as opposed to you saying the same thing as everybody else. And while that may seem like a quick fix, it's not going to help you in the long run. So be original, be you, use your own words, and talk about topics that interest you, and maybe topics that you've had issues with in the past, or you've recently learned, or things that help you, things that have been proven to work for you in your business and all that. So do that instead. Try that. Like, do me a favor. Try that for like a month. Just a month. Just throw away all of your keyword research and do what I just said for a month and see what happens. Maybe you have to go longer than a month. I don't know. But just try that. Don't try to be like everyone else. because everyone else is being everyone else, if that makes sense. And people want to hear refreshing, new, your spin, somebody else's spin, because they might be thinking the same thing too, and nobody's really said it. So, if you say something that you think one way and the popular opinion is another way, you may inspire someone else to do it a different way, and they're going to get great results, right? And that's what it's about. And I know it's about making money, but it's also, you can't make money without people interested in your website or your product or your course or whatever. So just keep that in mind. All right. So that little tangent has been taken care of. So I was reading an article last night. And by the way, this kind of goes on what I just said. Like, I've been thinking, what I'm about to tell you guys, I've been thinking this for a while, and I may have even said it a few times on my podcast episodes. I can't imagine not saying this because I've always thought this, but I was reading an article last night, and someone validated what I had been thinking. And when I say someone, I'm talking about John Mueller, who is a Google search advocate, and he does all of these blog posts and podcasts and question and answer sessions, and he's big on Twitter, and you can ask him all kinds of questions, and he can answer all the Google questions and SEO questions that you want. But he kind of validated the things that I've been thinking and talking about. And that's when you focus, or in order to focus on getting website traffic, organic website traffic, or SEO based traffic to your website, there are certain things that you need to do and know and understand before you can do it properly. So it's not just about keywords. It's about knowing how a website works. So hopefully, if you are doing SEO, you've built a website and you understand. But just because you've built a website doesn't mean that you understand the coding and the structure behind it. And that's another reason why some of these WordPress website builders, not just WordPress, but like Squarespace and Wix and like GoDaddy and name your favorite one. I kind of looked into Webflow a little bit, and that too. Anything that's a drag and drop, they're doing it to make it easier for you, but it's kind of taken all of the technical stuff out of it, and that technical stuff is what you need to know in order to properly perform SEO for your website, if that makes sense. So the basic thing, and this is what John Mueller said too, so yay me, you need to learn HTML, and you don't have to learn how to code. You just need to learn what HTML is and how it's structured and how a website is properly structured. So like, you have divs and you have rows, and then you can have, there's lots of divs within divs, and you can have containers, and you need to understand how that layout is. And like in a div, you can have your heading tags. So like you have the H1s through H6s and how that plays into it and why it's important. And the reason that you need to know that is so that you can structure your website properly so that Google knows how your website is structured and what your website is about. So if you're using H1 tags for everything, and then Google's going to be like, what? No way. Not everything is that important on this website. I can tell you that right now. Because Google's an algorithm. Google's a search engine. It doesn't have eyes. It can't see what your website looks like. So, but it can see how it's structured and laid out, and it can also tell if someone doesn't know how to properly code the website, because it has a hard time indexing it. So you have the HTML so that it can be indexed properly and Google can read it easily and index it easily. So if you're using the Search Console, you might be getting these error messages about, crawled but not indexed. And then it'll say it's because, beside it, the reason why or what the problem is, and it's like Google services. And 9 times out of 10, if you click on that and you see the reason why it's not, it's crawled but not indexed, it's crawled and not indexed because the little spider bot things, the crawlers, they got lost somewhere on your page because you were bouncing around and jumping around and all that. So you want to make it as streamlined as possible. So like just for an example, so let's go back to the H1 tag. You have H1 and you through H6, and you don't have to use all 6. You don't. I mean, just think of it again as an outline for a paper, right? Like a term paper, research paper, whatever paper, thesis, whatever. And the H1 is the title, the most important thing on that page, not necessarily the title tag, even though Google can use your heading tags as a title tag if they want to, if they feel like that is better than what you have put in for your title tag. But it's like the most important thing that you're going to talk about on that page, right? And then the H2 is like a subheading. So you can have H1 and H2, and then if you wanted to have an H3, which was another, like a subheading under that, and you can, and let's say you have 2 or 3 under the H2, so you have H1, H2, H3, H3. And then all of a sudden you go back to another subheading of the main heading, which is another H2. And then you can go H3, H3. And if each H3 has something of value underneath that, you can go H4, 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 H3, H4, H4, and then back to H2 if that's what you need to do to cover all the information from your website. These heading tags are not for design purposes. So, and I'm laughing because I've seen it happen, because I've asked people, I'm like, well, what did you use an H5 here for when you don't even have an H2? You have all these H1s and you have an H5. Oh, well, I like the font. I like the font that it chose and the color, and I can't make the other ones look that way. And I'm like, okay, so, which is another drawback of some of these website builder platforms like Squarespace and Wix and all the ones that I just went through, the whole laundry list of them. And, you can, some of these builders, you can choose which font and what color and what size you want to use for each heading tag. And if not, you can write your own with a little bit of CSS, which is a cascading style sheet. So basically what this CSS is, it's a separate file that loads, and it's a list of code that tells the website or the other code, what color to make a certain ID or class. So like you can have a class, like an H1 class, which if you have an H1 class that's main or something, you can name it whatever you want, but it tells, so once the code is read and it shows the class and it goes to the CSS file, and the CSS file says, oh, that's supposed to be blue, Lato font or whatever. So you can write the CSS that codes what your heading tags are going to look like, if all of that makes sense. I know I just got a little bit technical, and I'm very sorry. But some of these website builders have that option where you can choose, but what happens when you want your H1 to look different on like a blog post page as opposed to your home page? So, and probably most website builders do have the option to write your own CSS. So CSS would be a good place to start to familiarize yourself with how it works. I'm not saying you have to take a coding class, but nowadays, you can find information all over the place. You can go to YouTube and it explains HTML and classes and IDs and CSS. It usually is hand in hand. And sometimes it's well, no, I'm not even going to go there because I can talk forever about this, and we're missing the whole point of the podcast. So, yeah, so learn HTML and then learn how it works with, I guess you could call it programming. I guess CSS would be considered programming, CSS and HTML. I mean, I just call it coding, but it could be programming, basically. You can also learn other, features and functionalities of WordPress, like through PHP, like, the functions. And if you're technically minded, just figure it out. Go look at the code and see, this does this and this does that. A really good place to start with that, just as a sidebar, is on any kind of Genesis-based theme. They have the framework, and then there's child themes that run on top of that, just like, most other themes do. But Genesis is super easy to follow with their child themes because it adds like functions, the functions.php and all that with it. So PHP is a lot different than HTML, but each page is structured kind of like HTML, even though it's using PHP. I know that doesn't make sense, but if you know, then you understand what I'm talking about. But what the biggest takeaway of what I'm trying to say here is, if you understand the framework of how an HTML page in a website should be structured, then you're already ahead of the game, because the whole purpose of that is to make sure that your website is structured properly so that the Google bots can crawl it and index it. If your page is not indexed, your page is not being served on Google. So, which is why the Search Console is so important. I've seen so many updates with the Search Console recently, and there are pages that may have been indexed before, but when Google runs their updates and their core updates and their helpful content updates and all the updates that they run, that changes the algorithm, and your pages could go from being indexed to not being indexed, right? Based upon the structure of that page. So you can get away with it to a certain point, but then you're going to have to go in and fix the errors. And the Search Console is super, super helpful with telling you what the errors are, right? And it's so easy to find on your Search Console, which is why the Search Console is the best tool ever and super important. Okay, so I preface all this, I've said all this to say that if you're like my golf course client, people are going to come to your website anyway. They just are. Especially, if it's a great golf course, and if the weather's nice, or if you live in a place where it's golfing weather year-round and all that kind of stuff. They're going to come to your website because they're going to want to know how to book a tee time, if they can book online, where you're located, what you offer, about the course, everything. And it's just like a store. Like if you have a brick and mortar store that is like super popular, and you have items, if you sell items that people want, they're going to come and they're going to check it out. Think about how you utilize the internet. And I know I've said this before, but think about how you utilize it, what you look up. So if you're a restaurant, like, what are the hours? And you can go to the website to look at the menu. And not every restaurant website has a menu, which drives me crazy, because you want to know, like, especially if you're going to order out and pick it up or whatever. You don't want to go. You want to order it in advance. You don't want to sit there unless you want to sit at the bar and have a few cocktails or beers or something, which is nice every once in a while. But if you just want to go and get your food and come home, you want to order it in advance. So you want to know the menu prior to, right? Or if you want to buy something at a store and you want to see if this one particular store carries something. There's lots of reasons why people visit websites without you doing any SEO at all. But if your website is not one of those, like if you're not a brick and mortar store that sells popular items, or if you're not a restaurant that you know need to have a menu for, or if you're not a golf course, or if you're not, you know, a business that provides information that you want to know, like making appointments or whatever, like a spa or a salon. I mean, there's lots of categories that fall into this. But if you're a brand new website and your domain's brand new and you're selling something and you don't really have a reputation, like, you know, products, services, whatever, you're going to have to rely on proper SEO in order for people to find you and to get traffic. That's your website. But also, in addition to that, you know, your Google business profile, the Google My Business stuff, but that's a whole other conversation. We're talking right here about your website. So if you want people to type in a certain search string or search query to find your website, then you've got some work to do. And it's not just putting those words on a page like 12,000 times in different formats. There's some work involved on the back end, but it's also trial and error. So if you understand HTML, if you understand how programming works, if you understand how to create a sitemap, or like WordPress if you use Yoast, or actually WordPress actually generates its own sitemap. And I'm not talking about the little link that you click and it has, like, you know, for people to look at to see, like, you know, this is on this page or this is on this page. This is a sitemap.xml, and it's in XML, and that's for the Google bots to read, or any search engine crawlers to read, because that tells them, first of all, these are the pages on your site. And then you have the robots.txt, which instructs the little crawlers to crawl or to not to crawl. Okay, so you have sitemap, and then you have the robots.txt, and that's what the crawlers look at first, because they're like, ooh, there's these pages here. What do I do? And so you tell it what to do. You tell it to, you know, crawl this page, index this page, but not crawl and index this page, because this doesn't have anything to do with whatever. So that's a follow versus no follow, and that's in the robots.txt, which is generated, well, you generate it yourself, but you create that based upon your sitemap.xml. So once the little crawlers have those instructions, then they go to the pages. And if they get to your pages and your page is a complete dumpster fire with, you know, because you like the H3 better than the H1, and so your main title is H3, it's looking for an H1. So then it looks for an H2, and then all of a sudden there's an H3. Well, you're out of order. So what do I do with this information? So it's like, you know, garbage in, garbage out. So they might pick up on a few things, but, you know, do yourself a favor and make it easier for the crawlers to index your site. And then once your site's been up, go to the Search Console, because at this point, when you put your site up, you're going to submit your sitemap through the Search Console, right? Yes, say yes, because that's what you do. Then after it's been up for about a month or so, you can go back and see what pages have been indexed and which pages have not. And it'll tell you. And it'll tell you, you know, if it's mobile friendly, if people can look at it or see it properly on a mobile platform. And a lot of reasons why people can't read it on a mobile platform properly is that the text is too small, or you have a huge image that you didn't size down for mobile, or your platform didn't do that for you, so it's outside of the viewing area, and that's a whole other episode within itself. But you get what I'm saying. If you understand HTML and CSS and programming and how the back end of your website is structured, the better you're going to be able to create that and make way for Google to properly crawl and index your site, which to me is a lot more important than the keywords, like one-word keywords. Because you can have keywords and you can have keywords, But be careful with the keywords, because that's really something that Google does not measure anymore. That went away, oh my gosh, at least 4 or 5 years ago, right? So don't do that. Don't put a keyword meta tag. And that's the other thing with the meta tags. If you understand the programming and you understand HTML, you can understand your meta tags that go at the top, right? And all of this is like, depending on what your platform is, which if you're not technically based and you don't want to learn how to code, then it might be a better idea for you to hire someone who knows, instead of you just throwing spaghetti or darts at the wall and seeing what happens, because you can do more damage and put yourself in a hole that it's going to take a while to get out of, because you're not getting the traffic, and then you're going to get frustrated, and then you're going to be like, oh, this sucks, and SEO sucks, and it's just going to be super, super frustrating. But again, let's go back and preface this right now. Websites are hard work. And, a lot of people don't understand that. And it drives me crazy. Like, you spend all this time and effort to make a website look like a particular way, and you add extra code to make it look better, and, because you don't like whatever template, or you know what I'm saying. You don't want your website to look like everyone else's, and you go through all this to create something that's different and new and does what you want it to do, and instead of the theme dictating you, you're dictating the theme, basically. And then people come along and say, oh, well, just give me the login and I'll do it. And you're like, okay. So, sorry, that was a little bit of aggression on my end, because that has just recently happened to me. But and yeah, anyway, I digress on that one. I'm very sorry. Yeah, I mean, websites are hard. Sure, you can build a website. You can do a drag and drop, but until you understand how the site is structured on the back end, the harder time you're going to have with SEO. And especially if you are a new business starting out, or you're a business that you have a lot of competition, or you're not a business where you have a brick and mortar, or that you're super, super popular and you offer products that people are looking for, or you're not doing a lot of marketing. I mean, there's lots of factors involved, but we're just talking about the straight down and dirty. You should actually learn how a website is structured and make sure that you're following that. Because next time, I'm going to talk about how if your website isn't following specific guidelines as far as load speed times and the key indicators and the page speed experience and the core web vitals, if your website isn't following those, you can do run reports and see where to fix it. And if you don't understand that language, you can't really fix it. So that's coming soon. Yay, stay tuned for that. So, all right, y'all. As always, it's been my pleasure to tell you about all this. If you have any questions, if you need any help, if you have any comments, if you want to make any suggestions, you can leave a voicemail by clicking the link in the show notes, and I will happily reply to you. Or you can contact me through my website or through Facebook or Instagram. Powered by Rio is my company. So yeah, just let me know what you think. Let me know what's worked for you, what's not worked for you. Any suggestions, comments, questions. I mean, I could help everyone all day long, and that's what I would love to do. So just ask. And y'all have a great week, and I will talk to you soon. Happy websiting.
I'm gonna be the biggest rock star that you probably never heard of. I'm gonna be the biggest rock star.